Caesar, the crowd pleaser. If you need to pick me up, ladies, we gon' change your demeanor. Caesar, the crowd pleaser. We gon' do a little dance, we gon' make the naysayers believe us. Hey girl, had a long day, you tired from work. Throw me some dollars and I remove my shirt. You can touch me too, these are the perks. Free yourself, lose your mind and go berserk, and go berserk, and go berserk, and go berserk.
Make way for the bad guy.
What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Crowd Pleaser, the podcast that brings you the inside scoop on what it takes to be a male entertainer in today's age. I'm your host, Caesar the Crowd Pleaser. My special guest and I are going to be discussing the differences between male burlesque and LaBare, and also where they overlap. But first things first, I want to go ahead and mention our Patreon, patreon.com/crowdpleaser. This is where you can give back to the show or show us a little appreciation financially. It's much appreciated. Doesn't matter if it's $1 or $20. It really makes a difference. I appreciate it. It helps me fund my other projects and the things I got going on. So I just want to say thank you. You get all kinds of great perks like behind the scenes footage of photo shoots, act creations, routines. I ask my Patreons for opinions on future acts and events and stuff like that. So definitely check it out. Once again, patreon.com/crowdpleaser. Next is LaBare Dallas. This is my home office. I operate there 5 nights a week, Wednesday to Sunday. You can catch over 16 different entertainers of all shapes, sizes, and flavors. If you have any kind of reason to go out, LaBare is your place. The ladies' #1 destination in Dallas-Fort Worth area. All right, without further ado, I want to introduce a good friend of mine. He's been in the burlesque community for 3.5 years, performing as a showcase in the Hall of Fame, winning Best Variety at the San Antonio Burlesque Festival, and even competing for his own slot in the Hall of Fame this coming year. I want to welcome on the show my good friend and inspiration in the aerial community, Ickymuffin. How you doing, Icky?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, brother. Really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. It means a lot to me, so thank you.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So, came across Icky as an instructor in one of my aerial studios, and he does male burlesque. It is something that I feel overlaps immensely because on the surface we both do the same thing, but there are a lot of aspects that are different just because of the nature of the show. So I figured it'd be great for you guys to kind of get experiences from both sides of the coin and see how he feels about seeing LaBare and what we do. So first things first, though, let's go ahead and get a little credibility on your side. Tell us a little bit about burlesque, male burlesque, if you want to, if there's no overlap or if there is a difference, and then a little bit about your experiences in that.
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of overlap between what you guys do at LaBare and Boylesque, which is male performers in the burlesque industry. Burlesque tends to be historically more of riffs on pop culture and like very tongue-in-cheek. There's a lot of comedy involved, a lot of like storytelling that unfolds a narrative. But at the end of the day, there's still adult entertainment and stripping and tease and things of that nature.
Yeah. So is there, like, within just, like you mentioned, Boylesque, so is there a difference in show and performance as far as being a male burlesque performer and a female, or are they pretty much just about the same thing?
Well, I mean, the burlesque industry is, as I've witnessed it, it's a very female-dominated industry. Mm-hmm. The audience is mostly female. The performers are mostly female. The producers are mostly females. And then men are kind of allowed into the space to perform within these venues. So at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of difference in what we're trying to do, but there's just not as many male performers in burlesque.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so because of the slight novelty to it, that's kind of why it's
right.
It's kind of identified separately because it's something special.
Right.
You might have 12 burlesque troops, so maybe only 3 of them have a male entertainer.
Right. And there's not many Boylesque shows in this area in Dallas or in Texas that I'm aware of, but up in Chicago and New York, there's a much larger Boylesque scene in New Jersey and areas like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, actually, trying to find male strip clubs for females up north is extremely difficult. Right. I mean, they're all across Atlanta and other states like that throughout, ironically, the Bible Belt, but up north they find it a lot difficult. Yeah. We come across plenty of people that fly down here, and we're one of their destinations because of that. Right. So, do you feel in your own experience that you kind of almost have a leg up when it comes to seeking work and performance venues because of the fact that you do Boylesque versus, like, so you're in the 5% versus the other 95% females?
That may be true, but if I have a leg up, it's because of my aerial abilities and how I infuse my aerial capabilities into my performances. If anything, that gives me a leg up. When I first got started doing burlesque, I don't think I had exceptional stage presence or comfort on stage, but I could really spin and I could do some impressive acrobatic feats, and that kind of gave me a pass on, maybe where I lacked in performance quality and comfort on stage.
That makes sense. You play to your strengths until everything balances out.
Right.
So you got in the aerials before you started doing burlesque.
Right. And so aerials was kind of my foot in the door, and I remember my first few routines, I was basically doing the hardest aerial combinations that I could think of while wearing a pair of underwear with 12 rhinestones glued to them. Since then, my approach to performance and routines has grown significantly, and I spend a lot more time on the costuming and the narrative and how I interact with the music and how I unfold a story and how I riff on whatever, pop culture reference I'm trying to make or political thing I'm trying to make.
No, that makes a lot of sense. We actually go through a lot of that ourselves when we start creating our own acts and trying to stay up to date. We have club acts that stay in the club for years, like Cop and Fireman, but then you kind of try to play on popular movies, 50 Shades, Twilight, and all those things. So, and I've seen some of your performances, which are actually stunning, and hopefully we'll get through a few details on the show. So what got you, since you started in aerials, I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say you probably met other burlesque people in your aerial studios and stuff, and that's what got you into burlesque, or did something else kind of...
I was kind of introduced to aerials through burlesque. I actually went to my first burlesque show years back. I was going through a divorce, and some friends took me to a burlesque show, and then all of a sudden, this performer came walking out and started climbing these giant red curtains, and I was like, what is going on, and how do I do this?
Yeah.
And after that, I found the aerial studio that I train at, and kind of took it from there, and about 8 months later, I started doing some local community burlesque shows, and it just kind of took off and built from there.
It was one of those things where you kind of felt like you were doing the right thing?
Right. It just felt, it was something I was really excited about, and having an opportunity to perform was a really good way in growing my aerial talent, because it gave me a goal to work towards and something that was time-bound that wasn't just some lofty ambition. And so burlesque initially was just a way for me to get experience performing, and then I just really fell in love with burlesque and the community and the shows and all of the weirdness that goes on.
Yep. So I have to ask, because I'm sure people are wondering, you had 12 rhinestones on your first pair of underwear. How many did you lose in your first performance?
Oh, well, I used Hot Fix rhinestones, and so that they iron on. Okay. And every single one of them popped off when I was doing my Lyra number.
So you just played it off like that was part of your show? Like, hey, anyone that got a souvenir?
Yeah, if you got a souvenir, it's yours, and I'll accept tips if you have any tips.
Got it. Hey, I mean, we rip tank tops and throw them in the crowd, so that was your equivalent of that. It's fantastic. So... once again, I came across you, I found out you did burlesque, and I thought it would be great to have you on the show. So I invited you to come out to LaBare. You grabbed a couple of friends and actually did come out. I believe it was a Saturday night. I know it was one of the busier nights. I can't remember. Either way.
Yeah, it was Friday or Saturday night. Yep.
So what was your initial impressions? Because I'm assuming you've never been to a club like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I've been to... strip clubs, or most of them have been bars that have male go-go dancers, but the clientele's different. It's mostly like a male audience. So that was my first time in a strip club that definitely had like a female audience looking to see men. So that was new. The walking in, the atmosphere is quite a bit different from a burlesque show. It seems more singular in focus, and then like the women are there to watch men do amazing things. Like that is what they're there for. And in burlesque shows, you have more couples who are there together. You have more gay men who are there. But the way that the audience is relating to the content is different. Okay. I think. Like there's an expectation to have more like storytelling and humor, and then people are having conversations, and it's just the show and the way the audience interacts with it is very different. Most of the shows I do, there's no tipping, so there's kind of that a little bit more of a wall between the performer and the audience, and not quite as much interaction and participation with the audiance.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Like, we're actually not allowed at most of the venues I've performed in to go and dance on an audience member. Like, there are certain rules about that because of the way that their liquor licenses work and stuff like that.
Understandable. Yeah, I guess that is the thing I could imagine, because I feel like I have seen burlesque shows where they do occasionally request a volunteer, and they do a pretty good job of mixing.
And they have to come up on the stage. So, for example, the venue that I perform at the most, they have a rule, and it's not just their rule. I mean, it's technically a TBC rule. But if you are not on the stage, you cannot take off any clothing. So if you walk down the stairs and you go out into the audience, you're not supposed to take gloves off. You're not supposed to take your shirt off. Sometimes people do, and it's fine, but it's frowned upon. So that is supposed to be kept up on the stage.
Okay.
Because of the way that their licenses work.
That makes sense. Laws are laws. Like, sometimes they don't make sense. I know, like in Dallas, there's one where you have to keep at least 1 foot on the ground for some reason. I don't know how
so
that.
Arbitrary.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Like, so now I understand why all the female strippers wear like 9-inch heels. Like, you know, they could be halfway up in the air and still have a foot on the ground. Like, get it? Okay. So. And I do understand what you're saying, because, like we talked about a little bit before the show, there are occasions where we are hired for road shows, and they want us on a strictly performance basis. So we have a stage that is elevated above the crowd. It might be an amphitheater or something like that. And same thing, we do a production the entire time. We really don't interact with the crowd till the very end of the show, of our entire show. So it's almost separate from the show. On that note, when you perform, I understand that you guys sometimes operate in troops, but you also operate independently. Are you responsible for your show, and then after your show, even if the main event continues on, do you go into the crowd and interact, or do you kind of wait till all the performances are done and then you guys get to mingle?
All of the shows that I've performed in are pretty lax about, once you have performed, go out into the audience. If there's seats available, you can sit down, otherwise stand in the back. There's just some general appreciated rules that you follow, like if you have not presented your act on stage, don't go out into the audience in your full costume. Let that be a surprise. And those are just kind of general things that we do to respect the producer that hired us. And those are just general requests.
Yeah, no, we once again, same thing with us. We try, once the guys are dressed, like, we'll try to have the DJ call someone or send someone else to grab something or anything. So same thing. They don't know what act is coming up next and stuff like that.
And then other norms are, you know, it's expected typically, unless you've worked it out in advance with the producer who hired you, that you were there for the full show and then you were there for curtain call at the end of the show, because they're very time bound. Like, there is a start and there is an end. A lot of venues, there might be a different type of event or show going on after the burlesque show ends. So the show has to be done at 11. Like, another audience is going to start coming in at 11. You got to get your stuff and you have to be done. So there's a sense of urgency on wrapping up things on time, because it's not as much as like people come in, they enjoy the experience, they leave, other people come in. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Well, and plus that's probably another reason why they try to limit their audience interaction, because now you have a variable that you can't control.
Because there is always some Becky who is like, oh no, I'm going to make this show about me.
Oh God, you are preaching to the choir on that. Sweet baby Jesus. I totally understand. I don't know if the night, were you able to see any of that with the various women we put on stage the night you came to LaBare? Like, anyone that was trying to steal the show?
Yeah.
It happens more often than we care to admit, and it's just slightly frustrating. It's kind of like you really want someone to just ride the middle line, you know, because you don't want someone to steal your show. But I've had people that are completely non-responsive. They sit on their hands and they don't do anything, and it's almost as bad, because then you're like, can you give me some kind of reaction?
Most of the time, unless it's an entr'acte, like an act that is meant to draw out the length of the show, or while they deal with raffles or something like that, and it's just a little comedy thing where there's specific audience participation involved, which is usually handled by whoever's producing the show, not necessarily by individual performers. The participation is usually somewhat rigged. Like, if you're going to have someone come sit in a chair during your act, it is usually someone who you know or know through someone you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You don't have, loose cannons running the set.
Yeah, which I mean, I feel like there's the one overlap that we don't, or difference that we definitely have. Most of the women that we put up on stage, it's because it's their birthday or their bachelorette and their party, and so that's why we have so much like, man, I hope I get someone, like you're rolling the dice every time you put a girl up on stage, and versus if your act does in burlesque, I feel like if your show does require someone on stage, it's for like exponentially expanding what your act does, so you can rig it because we're putting forth a show.
Well, and depending on where you are, there are also just like certain type. Going back to like some of the ways that the licenses are worked out with venues, some of the shows can't have certain things happen on stage. Like I think that some of the stuff that y'all do on stage would probably be problematic because there's more simulation of sex, even though it's clearly not.
I'll be honest with you, we're probably not supposed to do half those things.
Okay. Well, like we did a show with the troupe that I'm in, the Lollybombs, and, the owner of the venue had a talk with us afterwards because there's this one moment where me and another performer, and we're fully dressed, but we were simulating like we were having sex as Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Spike. And and they were concerned about that, and we're like, well, you need to dial that back in the future because we could get in trouble. And we were like, oh, okay, well, next year we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we it's one of those things where we kind of flirt the line quite a bit. We're definitely, I know for a fact we do stuff we're not supposed to, because of the same thing like you said. There are laws as far as simulation stuff goes.
Right.
But it's kind of like we're trying to get a rouse out of the crowd and the people on stage and have a good time. So you kind of have to flirt with that line a little bit. Right. Now, we do on the regular, especially with the newer guys, they kind of don't know where that line is. So they might try to one-up somebody just for showmanship. And we have to pull them aside and be like, hey, look, we get what you're doing. Your head's in the right place, but your execution is...
Well, and it's funny because on one hand, there is this, like, trying to stick or at least lean towards the letter of the law. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, burlesque perpetuates and supports a lot of performance arts. So things go beyond like a performance as being sexually and creating a fantasy to much weirder, stranger avenues than what you probably might see in your venue. Mm-hmm. Like I was at a festival this last year, and this woman came out, and they gave like a trigger warning before she came out, and they laid out a big tarp, and this beautiful bronzed woman comes out with hypodermic needles sticking out of her body, like all over her arms and legs and back, with these big giant like ostrich feathers coming out of them.
Wow.
And her whole routine is this like very artistic dance where she's like pulling the feathers out of her skin. Mm-hmm. And that type of thing would probably be out of place at a venue like yours.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
because it's kind of crossing that line.
Yeah.
You know?
It happens, and actually our line is a lot wider than that at times, because one of the first shows I created was actually a robot routine where I face to gloves to bodysuits in light, LEDs, and we shut off all the lights on the stage.
That's awesome.
And we came out, and from a performance aspect, it was awesome. Everyone loved it, but it was only for the regulars that saw it, and they were like, "That's new, that's inspiring." But all the girls that came out there to see half naked dudes, were like, "What am I watching?"
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And so, like, and occasionally we'll have guys kind of trying to reinvent the wheel. We're always trying to look for new things.
Right.
So I think at one point someone did a Matrix act. It was before my time, but all the guys loved it. They were like, "Oh man, it was the coolest thing ever. He was Morpheus. It was awesome." But he stopped doing it because like the ladies didn't care.
Right.
So I totally understand where you're coming from. And burlesque, I feel like you do have a little more creativity and space to move versus us. It's like, look.
Well, and there's a lot of burlesque routines that step outside of building the fantasy, like maybe the more sexual fantasy or focus on the body, and can actually be really, I'm not to say depressing because they're wonderfully artistic, but like doesn't end on a happy note.
Yes.
There's a lot of that. It's a lot of like performance art. So it can go all sorts of different venues, and then there's so many different styles and subgenres within burlesque. Like metalesque and gorelesque and all these different things.
No kidding.
Nerdlesque.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there are entire burlesque shows that are built on like blood and gore themes. Mm-hmm. There are burlesque shows that are very heavily focused on what is nerdlesque, which is, anime and superheroes
like
and
8-bit
things like
theater
that.
type
Yeah, absolutely. So there's literally an audience and a producer doing just about everything you can imagine.
So I do have a question about Boylesque though, because one of the issues I've had on stage is I keep trying to one-up my own performances. And this last strip off, I ended up doing a water-based routine where it was 3 sections of progressively getting more doused in water.
Yes.
I
saw that. That was hot.
Appreciate it. I knew it was a good sign when, like, at the end of it, everyone was like, "How are you going to top this?" I'm like, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the show, the owner, during my show, like, I was already in tip time, and he came up and he's like, or no, it might have been after the show actually. He told me, he's like, "Caesar, that was awesome. Just don't ever do it again. My stage is a disaster." So with Boylesque, how do they manage that? Is that one of those things where you have to find a specific venue that you could do what you want? Because I'm assuming there's going to be some blood splatter, maybe some organ splatter, or who knows what. So like, how does that?
I haven't been in a Boylesque show. The troupe that I assistant produce, we've had a lot of, gore routines or things that were bloody, but mostly it is really good planning on the producer's part. So the producer of the Lollybombs, Miss Malicious, she knows just about everything about what's going to happen on her stage, whether it's one of her troupe members performing or a guest performer's coming in. And it is expected that if you have some component in your routine that is going to make a mess, we know about it in advance and we prep for it. So if that means making sure we have a large enough tarp, or making sure we have a fire extinguisher handy, or there's a bucket of water somewhere in case someone catches on fire, like all of those safety considerations are just taken out in advance. And if someone goes rogue and just starts making a mess of the stage, they're typically not invited back.
Understandable. Yeah. Ada, I thought I had pulled out on the stops on mine. I had a giant pool to have my water in, and I had
those endorphins.
Yeah. I had a shop vac to like suck up all the water and everything, so we cleaned up the stage quickly, and just things didn't, between people make it rain and just pouring too much water on my, it was, oh man.
Oh, and you got long hair, so it's probably just like whipping around.
It was an issue, I'm not gonna lie. Luckily, we all played it off and no one knew it was a complete disaster on the logistics side, but I understand. I definitely, whenever I have fire, I actually myself replace the portable fire extinguisher we keep on stage for when I do my fire point, stuff like that. But that's really cool. So, what, out of the shows you were able to see that night at LaBare, what stood out to you on both sides of the spectrum? And you don't have to be specifically on one, if you can, that's perfectly fine. I don't mind. What did you like? It doesn't have to be the best show. It could just be what caught your eye. And then on both, what was horrible? And you're like, oh my God, is he really doing this on stage? And vice versa.
Well, there was actually like a really broad range of approaches, I thought, at that show. So there were a number of routines which were much more straightforward, like stripping routines, like kind of like what I was expecting, which were great. Like it's the audience loved it. The guys looked amazing. Like they knew what they were doing. They knew how to work the audience, and the audience is crowding around and just throwing money at them. And then there were some other routines that definitely had a lot more. You could see had more props and more set pieces, and there was fire and stuff like that. And so there was pretty broad range of how people played out the interactivity and the theatricality of it. And I liked all of it, but I really love the ones that kind of have like mood shifts and the props and like the bigger theatricality of it. That's what I get real excited about.
Nice. It's actually funny because initially when people first come in, the club has a set of maybe about 10 routines that we normally give out to the new guys, unless someone keeps it, but for them to kind of help them along. But as you see them, and I'm sure it's like much how you told your own story, as you kind of progress, you find out what vibe you want to portray on stage, and that's what you gravitate to. Why I kind of dip into everything, because sometimes I like to do something really productive, or a production and theatrical, and sometimes I'm like, sometimes this crowd is really young, they want something in their face, and you just do really simple, bunch of chair routine or something like that. And same thing with guys. Some guys gravitate to comedy or solo or group acts, so it's really neat. So the ones that took more of a production, which makes sense, you come from a burlesque background and you do what you like, so you want to see the same thing. So what I should say piqued your interest the least?
Routines that had less structure. So as being a male stepping into LaBare, so there's also kind of like where I'm allowed to be in the club, and so like the, crowding the stage and throwing my panties at someone is like really not on the table. So like that's kind of like a wall to that level of excitement that the women audience members are experiencing, right? So seeing just like a beautiful body moving around for me is like not as exciting as seeing like beautiful body moving around and doing like this really theatrical show with all these different components and the musicality and stuff like that. So definitely the more polished stuff that had more structure and planning and choreography, like I really love watching that.
Yeah. And it's so we'll touch on it just because you mentioned it. It's really, I don't know how big of an issue it has been, but it has come up because obviously in today's society, as we progress and evolve, like things are meshing a lot more.
Right.
And like you mentioned, you'd never been to a club that was designed specifically for women.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I believe that Dallas has 3, maybe 4, like S4 and Tin Room and stuff that are more accommodating for both male and female.
Right.
And we're the only male club accommodating
But
females.
the vibe is like totally different between like LaBare's and those places. So those, like they're all great, but like you walk into LaBare's and like the layout, the lighting, the polish of the building inside is much higher end, right? And some of the like gay male strip clubs, which are, I mean, the audience is men, and there might be women there, but women are like guests in the space when they go into a gay strip club. But the focus is different too at those places because it's a bar that also has go-go.
Yeah.
Versus like this is a strip club that also has a bar, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
So just like where the focus is. So if you go to Tin Room or a place like that, like there are maybe 80% of the people who are standing around talking to their friends, and then there's like a smaller section which are much more interacting with the go-go dancers. Versus like at LaBare's, I feel like you guys are y'all are the feature. That's why everyone is there, is to see y'all perform, not so much hang out with their friends.
Okay.
And ignore the go-going and the dancing and the performances.
Yeah. It's because of that distinction that I think we blur. There's a line there, and I think it's mainly just a thing of because already people think that all the entertainers there are gay, and then it's one of those things like I don't know how to quite explain it. I think they're trying to maintain the place for women to go.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
I totally get like why the rules are there because like you have a more specific goal in creating a comfortable space for women to let go, and I think having that structure allows you to kind of control the audience and how the audience relates to the performances and all of that. So, I mean, like, it makes sense.
Yeah. And even now we have been, for like example, I can't tell you how often now we'll get bachelor and birthday parties to have, like, it used to be like the token black guy. Now it's like the token, gay friend, like every party. And it's always been, and we've had to accommodate that because what happened was it was becoming too much of an issue because we tell them the rules and they're like, well, we have one guy coming with us. And the thing is, I mean, we're human beings too. Like it's dumb for a party of 8 women to come in and be like, all right, well, you have to sit here because you have a guy with you. We're like, all right, look, as long as people are respectful, we have no issues with anyone. Because at the end of the day, we'll hold everyone to the same standard. I'm not going to let anyone disrespect me, period, regardless of what gender you are.
Right.
And so you'll see that now, where if they come in by themselves, actually, correct, it's like you said for Tin Room and stuff, they're more of a guest. And that's fine. But you'll see it like in our stage packages and things like that. We'll have 1 or 2 gentlemen sitting with them or even on our VIP booths.
Right.
Because we're like, look, like times are changing. Right. And so it's cool that, and like I said, it's mainly because of that distinction. Like you said it perfectly. It's just we're trying to maintain that safe place where women can go, where they're not like, well, I don't necessarily want to go to a gay bar.
Right.
And I think that's why it's always been kind of shaky, where it's like, okay, we want to ease up, but like, how much can we ease up before it changes what we're?
Well, it's weird, and there's no like clear boundaries between it. I mean, like there are women who go into gay spaces and are fantastic and respectful, but then it's kind of like a running joke, but it's a very real thing. Is like we'll get bridal showers or bridal parties that go to gay bars and treat random gay men who are not performers and are just there like a cattle call, and we'll walk up and be like, I'm real drunk, can I have your underwear? And we're like, no, like I paid $30 for this underwear. Why would I give it to this random drunk Becky? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, we get that too. Trust me. And it's funny because we've had the opposite too as well. I've had plenty of gentlemen come up to me and, hey man, your show was great, or my wife loves you, or like, hey, my girlfriend thinks you're fit. And we have a great interaction. Things are fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an issue. And like I said, it's mainly just the respect issue.
Right.
And I think now, and don't quote me on this, I feel like we're pretty flexible at everything minus main stage, and that's just once again to maintain that persona.
Yeah.
And plus, like, it'll probably throw a guy off if he's sitting there, you know, like just trying to seduce every girl on stage, and then all of a sudden he comes across a dude looking back at him, you know, like, oh my bad, I wasn't looking at you that way. You were just, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a tricky thing because you're trying to curate a specific environment.
Yeah.
And like that's part of the business model.
Yeah.
So.
Moving along, let's get a little. You mentioned the structure of our routines and what you liked. So, did you see what kind of differences and overlap did you see when it came to how we structure our shows for the most part, and how burlesque in general, or just even boylesque, structures theirs?
So, I think it's a lot closer. There's a lot more similarities between boylesque and like what y'all are doing at LaBare's versus maybe comparing what you're doing at LaBare's to burlesque, where women are performing. Mm-hmm. So, and obviously this is not like I'm not trying to make like a blanket statement, because like there are so many different ways that people execute their art and their performance and things like that. Sure. But most people, when they think of burlesque, whether it's the reality or not, they think of classic burlesque, which is, from a costuming perspective, is a throwback to the 40s, 50s, 60s, kind of like that pinup girl style, and a lot of focus on like tees, like a lot of focus on tees, and then there's neo burlesque, which is closer to what I do, where it's much more tied to the narrative and less like, I don't do a ton of tees in my routines. Like, I do acrobatics and I do weird characters and I get into the performance and clothing comes off. But I have never been very good at like the slow burn, as they call it, like the smoldering, standing around and being, you know, hot as hell. Like, that's not really my genre.
A slow burn, I like that. I'm gonna have to use that. I like that.
And I mean, I've seen burlesque performers. Like, there's a burlesque performer who won Burlesque Hall of Fame a few years back, named Matt Finish, and he did a routine where I think he had some sort of costume, or the music skipped or something and went back 2 minutes, and he just straight up went with it and killed 2 minutes staring at the audience and being coy and kind of sipping on a drink, and it was just this amazing expression of sensuality that wasn't overtly sexual, but it was super sensual, you know? And there was just different types of things like that. And so if you go to see different burlesque shows in different cities, you will see how people riff on the norms in a completely different way. Another thing that really kind of stands out, I think, in the distinction between, you know, boylesque and burlesque and you know, more traditional stripping is there's a different type of inclusion, you know, which isn't a judgment call or anything like that, but there are definitely more body types in burlesque and boylesque, and then a lot more kind of screwing with gender norms. So, like when I perform, I mean, I have, you know, eyeliner and eyeshadow and false eyelashes on, but I still have a six-pack, and you know what I mean? So like that probably wouldn't be something that someone would do in one of your shows.
Some guys do wear eyeliner, I will say that.
Guy liner. I think guy liner's a little different though than full face.
Let me see what else. I'm not gonna incriminate anyone, but I have seen guys putting on the foundation or cover up.
Oh my god, everyone should be putting on foundation and cover up.
I just let my imperfections glisten.
No.
So no judgment. Like, hey, kudos to them. But I sweat way too much, and all that stay spray stuff. I've tried. I'm not gonna lie. When I've done my,
you sweat. That's why you use a primer and then follow your makeup application with powder.
All right. Well, there you go. Everyone's got advice from a professional performer. Because I'll tell you what, I've tried everything for my Khal Drogo, for my Ghost Rider. What else have I painted my face for? There's probably like 3 routines where I painted my face. Dracula.
Do y'all oil up before you go on?
Some guys do.
Some guys do.
Between my sweat and
You're like, I don't have to.
Yeah, no, I glisten anyways.
I
and, like,
want to. I
Plus
mean,
I play with
I
fire.
want to be able to put body oil on because I know how everything looks so much better in the lights and stuff like that. But I'm an aerialist, so the last thing I want to do is have slippery hands or back. So I just throw glitter everywhere.
Yeah, I've seen it. Trust me, I saw your snow prints. Snow prints was absolutely amazing. I loved watching it, but the first 30 seconds of it, I can't even remember what you were doing because I'm like, there's just glitter everywhere. I could not handle it.
I was trying out there's this body glitter that I picked up at a festival, which is amazing, but you definitely should use it with a little bit of moderation. And I did a show where I was like, I'm going to go for a total mask look tonight, and I'm not going to wear heavy makeup. I'm not going to wear any glitter. I'm not going to do any contouring. And then I got nervous backstage, and then 2 hours later, it was like
you found comfort in glitter?
It was like someone's slutty aunt just exploded all over the dressing room mirror. And I put all this glitter on my body. And so anyway, I go out, and I'm doing my set, and I whip up into my apparatus, and my back slides across the bar. And it was just like a cloud of glitter exploded from me. And then the way the lights were, it was just perfect.
It looked awesome, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And I've tried to reproduce that same light effect, but all I've really managed to do is piss off a couple venue owners. So now I don't really do that anymore.
Yeah, understandable. Hey, you have to experiment to expand on your repertoire. I saw one of your live stories of you just pouring glitter on yourself, and kudos to you for eating up all that glitter. Like, the more you use, the less I come across.
That's right.
So
that's right.
by
I'll
all
take
means,
it. I'll take it.
It was great. No, it really. So first things first, let's go ahead and let people know that your primary apparatus is Lyra, which is a metal hoop that is hanging sometimes from 2 points, sometimes from 1, but and you like to spin. You have a reputation for spinning.
It's my shtick.
Yes.
It is my shtick.
So one, I have the utmost respect for you, period, for just doing it. Being aerials, period. Then two, I have more respect because we're both males. We have extra parts hanging out, and you're rubbing them across a metal bar. Yeah. Which I've had my fair share of Lyra experiences, and it takes time to learn this. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. I don't think I ever let go of my pull-up the entire time because
man. So there are definitely, I remember when I first started out, and I would take, most of the people who take aerial classes, especially in aerial fitness, are women. And so that's predominantly the audience. Yes. And then the instructors are predominantly women. And there are some moves that men should just not do. And you don't find that out until you have found that out.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter. You could have the most magical dance belt that has ever been made, and it will still squish a nut. And so you just learn. Not everything is for me, and that is okay.
Yep. I've had several times in class where the instructor will show a move, and they're like, "Any questions?" I'll raise my hand. They're like, "What's up, Caesar?" I'm like, "Can I do this?" Yeah. And then like, "Ooh, that's a good question." And I was like, I really, I really don't want to find this out the hard way.
Yeah. A lot of what I do is kind of been just innovating with what I have and making the best, like we were talking about earlier, like making the best of your strengths. So when I first started out doing aerial, I don't have a dance background or any type of formal training other than doing yoga a lot before I started with aerial. And so my lines left a lot to be desired. I have a lot of flexed feet, a lot of awkward lines in my arms and shoulders and things like that. And I found that spinning was kind of a crutch for me because I was able to, it's harder to see discrepancies in lines when you are spinning quickly. And a broken shape actually looks really cool when it spins. And then, people were impressed by my spinning, so I just kept spinning more. And at one point, it was I would just have these routines that are 4 minutes of me spinning really fast. Now I'm kind of backing off of that because my lines are better and my technique is better and I move better on the apparatus.
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell you.
And I'm trying to play up just the routine as a whole. So the routines that I like to do the most now and the ones that are getting me the most traction in burlesque are not strictly me doing tricks. They are me doing stuff on the floor and interacting with the chair and playing with props and then going to the apparatus and just that kind of interchange.
Yeah, I'll tell you that from watching your shows, your lines have I would have never known that you had problems with them.
I will send you my first performance one time, and you will be like, "Oh my god, it's so weird."
Well, if you finished watching the strip off show, I did a little bit of rope at the last minute, I'll be honest with you, I never want to watch that again. It was so horrible.
Oh man,
I was like, I can't believe I thought that was okay to do on stage. So I understand.
Yeah, but, well, sometimes you look back and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, but it's funny because like especially when you're in it, you're like, I did the thing, and you're so excited that you did the thing, and then maybe you look back 2 years later and you're like, oh, that thing was not a thing. That was weird. But I feel like in these with the types of audiences that are attracted to like LaBare's or to the venues I perform at, there's a lot of forgiveness on stuff. Just for putting yourself out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen lots of performers where they might not be the best dancer, or they might not have the best costuming or something, but like if you like bring your personality to the stage and like really go all in, like people will freak out.
Yeah.
That's what people really want. They want to feel something, be moved, whether that's you built a fantasy for them, or you made them laugh, or you made them cry, or you made them something.
Or even just amazed. They forgot they were breathing. They're like, oh, wait, I haven't been breathing for the last 30 seconds. It's absolutely incredible. And your spinning is phenomenal. I've asked you several times. I'm like, because I've started to kind of dabble in the aerial spinning, and I'm just like, I can't. I do it for 4 minutes, and I'm out. Like, my brain doesn't know which way is up.
You just got to spin until you throw up. Every time.
Yeah. And then you're good after that.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's funny. It's like, I can spin for a really long time now, like practicing, and I might need to sit down, but for the most part, I can just go and go. But when I perform, I usually throw up after every performance.
Just because of the combination of like
it's
adrenaline.
It's a combination. It's a big part is the adrenaline, because like you're just so ramped up and you breathe differently when you're pumped up and the audience is cheering for you.
Yeah.
And then the lights and all of that just kind of becomes this perfect storm of like, oh, I'm going to have some foamy vomits in just a second. Yeah. And, for someone who spins a lot, it's not the spinning that makes you sick. It's when you stop spinning. So I'm fine on stage. I can just go. It's when I plant my feet and then I'm like, I have 30 seconds to get off stage and find a trash can.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll use it, and maybe I won't. But now my brain is conditioned to see a trash can, and I can just get nauseous immediately. It's like looking at a toilet after a night of drinking. Like you're like, okay, I know what that's for.
Got you. Subconscious, got it. So you mentioned props, and I feel like sometimes we're limited on stage because at the end of the day, we can't go as theatrical as sometimes we want to. We want to, especially for our strip-offs, our competitions, we want to go all out, throw backdrops, props, and do these great things. Like for my Dracula, I have an altar and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, but traveling with that is hard.
Yeah, very true. So you did a cat routine, and your costume was amazing, by the way. Like, I almost didn't even recognize you. But one of the coolest things I thought was you played on your theme of a cat, and you started to play with toilet paper, which is great. And that in of itself was awesome, and the audience loved it. But then, with nonchalantly, you somehow like either gripped it with your toes, attached it to your feet, and then you jumped on your apparatus, your lyra, and started to spin, and it created the coolest looking.
Yes, that's like my proudest stripper moment ever.
Well deserved. Like, I mean, it was still so awesome. So like, I mean, tell me a little bit about that. Like, did you come up with that on accident? Did you know what you wanted to do?
When I tried to make that transfer from being an aerialist who happened to take his clothes off to being a burlesque performer, or a stripper or burlesque performer who happened to do aerial, like there was kind of divide, and part of that is incorporating clothing removal and the theatricality between the floor and the apparatus. So, like in the Snow Prince routine that you mentioned earlier, I do a thing where I spin my pants off. Like I unbutton the pants and I whip my legs and the pants fly off. That's like a big moment. Even though it's not a very good representation of burlesque, it's more of a representation of aerial arts. Mm-hmm. But there was like a clever, original way of infusing that into the routine. And then the cat routine, like I built that whole routine to be like the best representation of that I knew how to do for burlesque. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to incorporate unusual objects, and I was thinking about doing it. I've been wanting to do a cat routine forever, and cats get into toilet paper. And one day I went to the aerial studio with like a big 12-pack of double plush toilet paper and just went to town. And
Okay.
it was a disaster. I mean, it was a beautiful disaster, but like the studio owner walked in and there's like, 8 rolls of toilet paper spread out over the space. And she's like, I don't really know what's happening right now. And I'm like, I'm creating art.
Don't question the method.
Don't question the madness.
Yeah. Did you? So that part I feel like is a big difference as far as what you can do in burlesque and what we can do on stage for us.
Right.
Did you see that difference? Like, obviously the routines that were just dancing, choreography, like that's pretty simple. The guys come out in a costume. But when you did see those more theatric things, did you kind of see enough to sell it, or did you feel like it was lacking and you wanted to see more?
I thought that there was. I thought they were like sold really well. Like, that's the thing is like, if you go to a burlesque show, it's not that like every performer is performing at a 10 level. Like there is like forgiveness for newer performers, and or maybe just some routines aren't as good as other routines. Like I have routines that I'm like, this is a stellar routine, this one is, I'm getting by on the fact that I'm doing a flip through a hoop, but the routine itself is not really that great. And I just think like in any show, you're going to have performances that are way there up the top and then ones that are a little bit lower, and it's just where people are. But I thought that you guys had some really like smart routines that would, if you were willing to take a massive pay cut, like you would do at burlesque venues.
Yeah. Sweet. We'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, like, absolutely. No, I mean, there's kind of a joke, and there's obviously more to it, because I think that strippers deal with and have to utilize talents well beyond what a burlesque performer would. Like the way that you interact with crowds and the way that you interact with people and network is something that I don't really have to deal with, and I'm quite very uncomfortable with. Like I don't flirt with anyone. That's not part of my description. I'm just Ickymuffin. And sometimes like some handsy drunk woman will try and grab my nuts while her husband takes a picture. But that's kind of it.
Yeah. That's it. That's minor details that you have to deal with. If it makes you feel any better, I feel your pain. I think everyone at LaBare felt your pain at one point or another.
Oh yeah, but I remember just watching. I was like, man. I mean, it's great. Like the women are having an amazing time, and you guys are creating a fantasy for them. Like that's like seems to be like the core thing, and it's just the approach is just different. But I think a lot of similar skill sets are used. It's just how we're creating what we call art.
Yeah. Whenever you see someone walking with a checklist, you're in trouble. Like that's the party that most guys are going to avoid, because there's nothing on that checklist that's like, oh, give a stripper $100. Hey, hug somebody. No, it's never that.
Right.
It's never that.
Right.
So you definitely have to be careful of those. So you mentioned the audience, and we've touched on it a little bit, but you were able to people watch while you're there, which is great. I tell people all the time that you'll come maybe for an event and stay for the dudes, but we'll have you coming back as the people watching.
Yeah.
So the interaction obviously is way more significant when it comes to LaBare versus burlesque. Is that something that you would appreciate, or are you comfortable with kind of like that slight, not disconnect, because you still are connecting with your audience, but maybe that invisible wall?
I actually am. I mean, I'm comfortable with the invisible wall because like I am not as comfortable like selling that side of my sexuality. You know what I mean? Like I'm not comfortable like getting right up on people and being like legitimately sexy. Even if someone finds me sexy or finds something that I did sexy, in my head I'm like, I'm a big dork. I'm dressed as a cat. I have harem pants on and a giant white wig. Like I'm ridiculous, and I'm like, and that's like my relationship to it. But I have never really done a routine where I'm able to like get up close to an audience member and make eye contact like with that person. And if I do, it's very fleeting because I get insecure and I like move on. I'm like, oh, back to my show.
Yeah.
So I kind of create that distinction just because like I don't have the capability to do that comfortably. Like it would be awkward, I've only done one show where there was tipping, and it was a community burlesque show like in a bar. And it was a ton of fun, very, very different audience and very different like line of performers. because they're, it's more community driven, more community art. So like in some cases there might not be as much polish, but the audience is it's this big sea of love, and not so much about creating a fantasy, but creating a supportive, safe environment for the crowd and the performers. But in that show, I didn't know that there would be tipping, and I'm, pretending to be. I did a routine called "The Seduction of Montgomery Burns" by Waylon Smithers. And,
okay. Oh, man, you have some really good themes. Wow.
And, I have someone holding a Mr. Burns panel mask in front of their face, and I'm kind of giving them, like, literally the worst lap dance you've ever seen in your life. And I was trying to do my best. I was just awful at it. And I'm just, like, awkwardly, grinding on someone. And
well, I do privates. Just FYI.
I need to take you up on that because I'm awful. And then all of a sudden, all these little origami dollars started getting thrown on stage, and I was like, "Am I that bad?" Like I didn't know they were dollars. I was just like, "Oh my god, they're throwing stuff at me." And then I'm like, "Oh, that's money. Oh, that's nice."
Yeah.
And then I go back to my routine and I spin and I do my stuff, and
I can get used to this. This is fine.
Yeah.
So with that interaction, that level, you saw. I think it helps our show because I've seen both sides of it. Across the board. I've done the production shows where we have, other than random cheering, we don't interact with the crowd. And I've done where we get zero interaction with the crowd, even at LaBare. And when they're just covered the stage, they're throwing money, they're yelling. And I feel like it just makes the show that much better because if you think you're at top level, there's nothing better than doing one of your power moves, whether it be in the air or dancing or something like that, and the crowd reacts the way you wanted them to.
Absolutely.
So, do you feel like that would help your show if it was, maybe not, obviously you'd want the tipping, but do you think like a little, slightly more intimate interaction, a little closer vibe than just distant clapping would like...
It might work for some shows. It probably just, the way I am as a person and performer, it would probably not work as well for me.
Okay.
Because like, I don't vary from what my expected plan and choreography is very much. Like sometimes I'll go rogue if I have to improvise, but for the most part, I am in the right place at the right time. I'm on the beat. Doing aerial stuff, you kind of have to, because I know it takes X number of seconds for me to get from this point on the hoop to this point on the hoop to set up for this trick, and I can't let my timing go off. So introducing an element that has a lack of predictability is not something I'm willing to do to one of my routines because, I've watched performers where they have audience participation and it's very clear what the audience member is supposed to do. They're supposed to pull on the stocking and then there's some sort of stocking gag that the performer does. But the person who stands up takes forever to get up to the stage and then they don't pull the stocking right, or they thought they were just supposed to rub the leg, and then this thing ends up, instead of taking 10, 12 seconds of interaction, becomes this kind of awkward 30-second thing, and I don't want that to be me.
Yep.
Like it's my routines are too tight for that.
No, I understand because that.
But I will say there is something magical about people in the audience losing their mind, right? And one thing I thought was great, watching y'all's show, is that these women are losing their minds. They are having the time of their life. And as excited as people get at a burlesque show, they don't have that level of enthusiasm.
Are you sure though?
I am. They may, people get excited, people scream and people yell.
What about your glitter bomb?
But it's different. It's different because they're still seated. They're like in a chair and they're maybe in the back of the theater and they have a fixed point. When you have all these bodies kind of rushing the stage and kind of like leaning over each other, that type of excitement I think is totally different. Like that is a different type of cheering. And it's exciting to watch. Even from my spot, towards the back of the venue, like it's exciting to see that energy happening because they're just so into it and they're so excited and they're so happy and they're so all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I know as a performer how much that feeds like that ego in the moment that you need to be a good performer.
Yes. Oh, very much so.
Like there's a big difference in like stage presence in performing in a fluorescent lit room in front of a mirror and kind of like trying to get into it than when you have a bunch of people screaming for you. That.
Oh, yes.
And everything just comes to life. So the louder you can get that audience, just the better the energy is for the room. So in that case, like if I was more comfortable being that up close to people, yeah, but I'm just not.
Understandable. So On that note, with the crowd there obviously we've discussed it throughout the show that there's no tip time in most shows, and so once you're done with your performance that you've choreographed from start to finish, you walk off stage, and then later you go intermingle with stuff. And we'll go back to this because I want to see what the crowd reaction is to that. But we stay on stage and we collect tips and we try to generate more rapport with people. From what you saw, do you feel like the show continued during tip time, or do you feel like it dropped and then until the next guy went on stage and kind of created this roller coaster? Because I know for us, we encourage people, hey, you're on stage, you're entertaining, period. Like, make your money, but keep the show going. And it's one of the things a lot of people sometimes, not a lot of people, but at least half the entertainers we get lack. They'll do an awesome show, the crowd will be losing their minds, and then once they get naked, like the show energy just drops. So what did you see?
I mean, I could see that y'all are promoting your persona. And I don't know how much the guys, the way they carry themselves and the bravado and the, masculine representation on stage, how close or different that is from how they are backstage, like, just joking around in the back with the other performers and stuff like that. But what I do see is that, everyone that I saw seemed to, stay engaged with the audience, and they went and they collected their tips, and, you're trying to make money, so, obviously you should do that. In burlesque shows, there's no tipping. There are some shows that have tipping, but most of them there is no tipping. And the announcers, the MCs will say, the only tip they need is your applause. We would love for someone to sneak us a 20. We're not going to say no to that, but it's just different. The way that the production is handled is different.
Yes.
So
good. Well, I'm glad because, essentially, like I said, that's what we tell people is the show's not over when your act's over. The show's only semi-over when you walk off stage. Right. And obviously you have to keep that on side stages.
And the thing is, too, I think you have to have lulls in the excitement. There has to be. Because, when you're trying to keep an audience engaged and cheering and rowdy, which is really important to keep them rowdy, you can't keep someone rowdy for an hour and a half straight.
True story.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You may be able to, but at some point you will have amazing talent that comes out and the audience just doesn't have the energy for them anymore. So you kind of need those lulls. And we have those built into our burlesque shows too. Because the stage has to be cleared, clothing has to be removed, glitter has to be swept up, fake blood has to be, wiped off the floor, things like that. And then the next performer's props have to be set. And some productions will have an MC who comes out and kills the time and tells jokes and riffs with the audience. And then my troupe, for the most part, will either have a short video clip that plays or something, but we don't have MCs for our shows traditionally. But either way, a lull between performances is built into the structure of the show.
See, and that's another place where we kind of differentiate a little bit is because we try to maintain not necessarily that level of excitement where they're losing their minds, but when we have a good crowd on the stage, if we have too long of a lull, they'll sit back down. They're like, oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, I want to go find my friend. Oh, where's my maid of honor that I lost?
So you got to keep that energy going.
So we typically try to give ourselves 30 seconds to a minute in between shows just to clean up the stage, prep the music, whatnot. But we try to keep the show going nonstop for that reason.
Right.
And that way, some girls, they're like, I have to go to the bathroom, they'll go off stage, but there'll be other girls to keep that energy. Because much like you said, you'll be there in practice rehearsing something. You're like, this is dumb. I can't believe I'm doing it. But when you're on stage and women are losing their minds, then all of a sudden you're like, I'm king of the world. This is the best thing I've ever done,
Right.
And so you want that because it just hypes the show.
Another thing I did notice, kind of differentiating some of the structure components, is y'all have an MC, an announcer.
Yes.
But they talk during your routines.
Yes.
They are pumping the crowd up. They're encouraging the ladies to get their dollars out and get their money out and, make their fantasies come true and all of that. And that doesn't happen at burlesque shows. There will be an MC will fill some time between acts, and they're their own performers as it is. They have, jokes either prepared or they're really good improv or something like that. But they have a function, they're waiting for that red light to turn on so they know to stop talking.
Yes.
The next performer is ready. But once someone's routine starts, they are out. They have no part of it unless they've been asked to. So there's no interruptions to a performer's work that they are presenting. So that's just kind of like a difference in like how the venue functions with the performances, I think.
Yes, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about it until you said it. And there actually is a difference for us when we have that and when we don't. Because I feel like it's almost, I hate to say the word training, but it's more like showing people how the show is supposed to go. You know, you want the gentleman to take his pants off, yell for him.
Right.
You know, like you said, pull out your money, tip the man, things like that. And it really makes a difference. And once again, we go back, sometimes it takes a little bit of encouragement. When I'm doing my shower act, there's a point where I switch tempo from a more essential, hey, I'm showering off everything from my work day, to, hey, I'm going to have at you in the shower.
Yeah.
And so to kind of amplify that, the DJ will, hey, somebody scream right when that beat changes. And it really just kind of, it fires up the crowd, it fires me up, and it really creates a great dynamic. Same thing when the guy, if girls are just, there's another guy on stage, but all of a sudden he's like, hey, he wants to see that guy take his pants off, and girls start screaming, it makes other women look and generate that.
Right.
So versus I feel like at a burlesque, everyone's already looking at the show because that's what they're there for.
Yeah, right.
And plus, you guys also do your soundtracks, so you kind of want to play, and I've seen burlesque where they kind of talk to the crowd a little bit, whether it's with the song or just them actually talking, or weird noises and things like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the music, and that might be where we start bringing it to a close. LaBare uses, I'll be honest with you, unless we need the whole song for the routine, we don't play full songs. Like, we keep that kind of club mentality and feel to it. We're high energy and stuff like that. Most of burlesque I've seen, including yours, one song, maybe two, a transition for a tempo. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, is that pretty much the standard, or do you feel like you could do more, or is that just like where everyone feels comfortable with?
The thing is like, different people approach it differently, but most routines are 4 to 5 minutes long in a burlesque show. Now, there are some performers who want to create more epics, so you might have some 6, 7, 8 minute routines. Those are really hard to execute well because that's like a long period of time that you have to keep an audience engaged. And if you don't have good tone shifts and things like that, the audience can get kind of bored or antsy or like, where is this going?
Yes.
So typically, routines are 4 to 5 minutes long. Now, I know, like, if I have a really good song that has a specific climax and, like, level changes where, like, either the pacing changes or something like that, and it's just part of the song, I will use that song uncut. Or maybe I'll trim out some parts that I don't want to do choreography to that because it doesn't work with my transitions, and I'll edit around what I know I'm going to do.
Yes.
Or if it's a character piece, there'll be like the clever shift. Like in my 9 routine, there's a very somber, kind of like out of this world kind of sound and feel. And then when the stripping starts, then it's like gold frap.
Yes.
And so there's that kind of transition. The routine is built around that transition.
And it works really well because you were telling a story with the story of 9, which is not exactly the most exciting, like super happy movie.
Right.
And then, which mind you, your costume was absolutely phenomenal. Let me just go ahead and say that. Like
I made the mask. This amazing burlesque performer, Marilyn Mayhem, made the bodysuit, and she is just a stunning costume maker. She's just fantastic. And she made that giant zipper and gave me hip pads, and then I just worked on all the elements around it. But yeah. It
was great. How you saw through that mask, I have no idea, but kudos to you, sir.
You just know where your hands are going to go.
Fair enough.
And hope for the best.
Just kind of start wandering. I think the lyre is around here. Once you grab it, you're like, good.
Well, with I do a lot of spinning. So with spinning, you always have one or more points of contact with the apparatus because like I'm not going to do like a free drop or something where I fully disconnect from the hoop while it's spinning because it's not predictable where it's going to be. So I've run the routine so many times, and I use a lot of similar transitions in my routines and like things that complement me and that I execute really well, and I'll kind of find different ways to fold the taco, so to speak, to make like choreography and movement that I have that works for me play out in a bunch of different routines. And so I know where my hand's going. Like I could do just about all of them with my eyes closed and it'd be fine.
It becomes second nature.
Right.
It happens to me. Occasionally we'll get new guys that want to learn an older routine that I've been doing for years. And I teach by the numbers.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, I'll try to teach them. I'm like, hold on, I don't remember the counts because I just have it so ingrained.
You know it. You know that weird little riff in the song that is like the key to do something.
So I have to sit there and be like, hold on, play the song, and then try to count it out and be like, all right, these are the moves. So I understand. So one final note on this. after coming and experiencing being in Boylesque for 3.5 years and seeing LaBare at least for one night and various other videos and stuff like that, what's something that you would think you would like to see that would improve LaBare? And is there anything that you might have taken from what we've done that you'd like to incorporate in your shows?
I mean, that's the thing is like, I feel like the biggest distinctions have to do with how the venue and the production itself runs, which is not something that is malleable. Like, we're not going to have people lining up at the stage to give us money because that would break the show as we do it.
Yes.
You know? But that's like a really big differentiator for you guys because it makes a big difference on how intricate your choreography and your timing and your interaction with props can be, because you have all of these, like, you literally have from my perspective, all these like wild cards everywhere.
Yeah.
And your attention has to like track, you know, the money and the women and where the excitement is, and you are like paying attention to a bunch of different things that we don't have to pay attention for. I'm like, my lighting is good and I am able to see, and I don't have a strobe light that's going to cause me to have a seizure on the apparatus. So like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm not really as much paying attention to what the audience is doing. Now, what I do really like, and this is just for me as a performer, I do want to build up more comfort and talent in like the kind of the slow burn, and then like the expressing a more sexual side that I don't really do on stage, because most of my routines are either super somber and like emotive or like really quirky and tongue-in-cheek. But I don't really have anything that plays off as like straight up sexy. And that would definitely be a big growing edge for my performing that I just haven't like been able to make happen.
Yeah, and sometimes it's great because a dab is all you need sometimes. You know, you just kind of do a quick tone change, throw a little bit of sexy in there, it throws them off, catches their attention, they're like, what just happened? And you go back to your tongue-in-cheek.
Right.
And I've seen it happen. More of and that might be the more classic burlesque that I've seen, but it's essentially a woman that's super confident on stage, and she's more just being herself and kind of chatty Cathy, and then she'll do something sexual and then go right back to it.
There's some burlesque performers who just give the best face like in the world. I mean, and I love like watching a really experienced burlesque performer who can control a crowd with like the way they move their right eyebrow.
Yes.
You know, like that type of control, and having the audience hanging on their every move is amazing. And I tend to get people to hang on to my performances by doing athletic feats or acrobatics or something like that. Not so much like that approach, which is kind of where I'm like, I could do more of that.
Yeah. It is, and that's the one benefit. I mean, obviously, you perform in troops, so you get to see other performers at times. And that's the one thing I'm grateful for as well, because I'm still learning. I've been in the game 6.5 years, and I still watch people. For example, our DJ Caden, he doesn't dance no more. He's our DJ, but he knows like 3 dance moves, and he openly admits this. He's a hardcore headbanger rocker, so he doesn't never really dance. But he will hold a crowd like nobody's business, and I'm just mind blown watching him, and I get to see things like that, and maybe not necessarily that I want to copy exactly what they're doing, but having the ability to access that kind of potential or tool is just phenomenal.
Right.
And one last joke that I haven't wanted to hear is that I actually might have just talking to you when you were talking about more classic burlesque and stereotypes and stuff. I feel like I figured out why everyone wants to always see us do helicopters is because every burlesque show that I know of, at some point, it goes down to tassels across their boobs and they're just helicoptering them, you know? So I wonder if that's probably where everyone wants to see the guys.
So that's a big trope in burlesque is tassel and asshole twirling. So, I mean, and it can just be bananas. So, like, there are performers where, you know, they'll take their top off and they have pasties with tassels on them, and they'll do, you know, like a tassel shake. And then they'll pop a layer of underwear off and they'll turn around and they'll have tassels on little pasties on their butt, and they'll do like a butt shake.
No
and it's
kidding.
like, it's just really over the top. I mean, burlesque is like intentionally over the top, even if the things that are happening aren't something that, you know, gets you turned on in a traditional sense. Like, they're exciting and they're like naughty and they're making you laugh, but it's not necessarily something that's sexual.
Yeah. It's a tool, is what I've always seen it as. It's at the end of the day, it's a performance. At its core, it is a performance. It just happens to use sexuality as a tool. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's not.
Male burlesque performers will sometimes have like cod pieces or some sort of thing that is just held on by invisible string, and it's just this big tacky thing on their junk with like tassels and fringe and stuff like that, and they'll do like a shake. You know, it's just part of the trope.
Yeah, which is actually funny because some of our guys wear fullbacks with fringe on the front. I personally dance too much and I sweat, so I like everything to be held down in one spot, and I'm good with that. Yeah. But I have seen it, and it's quite humorous. Like, case in point, when I do shower, I have to wear a different kind of underwear because that's what can get wet and not fall apart or not be gross or whatever. And like, I'm so uncomfortable dancing in it just because there's like no support. You know? It's like whatever movement I do is reciprocated down there. I'm like, this is horrible. I don't.
Meanwhile, I'm backstage and I'm like, could someone turn the heat on? Because it's like real cold back here, and I'm totally about to go on, and I'm inside of myself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So here's one of the issues.
I have to stretch on the cement floor, and I need some heat.
Does anyone have a portable heater here? I'm about to go on stage. I need to look the part. So here's one of my dilemmas I have is when I do shower, I can't take a hot shower. I have to take a cold shower because it'll fog up the glass. So I'm sitting there taking a cold shower on stage, and everyone.
No, sir. Nope.
No, but then here's the flip side to that. But then if I'm gonna do my aerials after, obviously you want your muscles warm so you can flex and pull. So then I have to take a warm shower, but then it fogs up. So like there's this back and forth debacle I have all the time.
My worst nightmare is a cold shower.
Oh,
like
okay.
Absolutely the worst. I just can't handle cold water. Nope.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same. But
I was like, fog up the mirror. I'm fine.
Yeah, you're like, burn my skin a little bit. It's fine.
I'll draw something in the glass with my like wet penis. I don't know, but
it's a technique. It's a technique. It's not my preferred, but it is a technique.
Look, art. Yeah, I just made it.
Oh God, one of my friends is a zookeeper, and they sell art that is created by the animals sometimes, and so I mean it's a little 5x5 square.
That's
or whatnot.
amazing. There you go. If I could get an elephant to paint a picture of me, I would. It would just that would be everything.
I'm not sure if it would be a picture of you, but they could paint a picture.
Well, whatever. I would just be like, look, he was trying to paint me. Like I will have a revisionist story with.
You'll stand in front of it when he stops. All right, we'll see if I can make that.
They'll be like, I don't know. It looks like a ball, and I'm like, that is clearly my head. I have a very ball-shaped head.
when it'll be your Hall of Fame entry. Present. I'm like, hey, congratulations to the Hall of Fame. Here's your elephant painting.
You can put this on all of my badges.
Yes. Sweet. Oh man, Icky, you're something else. All right. So I'll tell you what. I like to end the show. We'll call it Bone It. I like to end the show with our least favorite and favorite events of the week. One of the things, I don't know if you get it as burlesque, but for strippers, we always, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you, this and that. So on the show, I kind of like to let people know more or less what we deal with on a weekly basis. So I'll go ahead and go first so you got time to think of something. Okay. So my least favorite event was actually pretty simple. It was actually last night. We were Thursday night, we were going on stage. It wasn't a bad night. We actually had probably about 60 women in the club, give or take. Yeah. And the guys were putting on pretty good shows. Like if we have more than 12 girls, we'll start to put on a better show because we want to entertain people. And the DJ was getting a little frustrated, and normally that's not a good sign. If the DJ is getting frustrated, the MC, like something's going on. And so long story short, for about 2 hours, everyone that went on stage, out of all the 60 women that were there, none of them that were not regulars got up. A couple of them hooped and hollered, but all of them, for the majority, just stayed sitting down the entire time unless they were going to the bathroom. Yeah, and so you're
like, that's my money.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't come up and tip us, we're not getting paid. And one of the tables went as far. Actually, it's funny. One of the tables went as far as having a stack of money at their table, but they never spent it. They took a couple of Facebook pictures with it and posted on Snapchat, but they never got up and tipped.
Oh, that is tacky as all get out.
Yeah, exactly. And then the worst thing is you see that on main stage and you still have to do stages 2 and 3 and watch them do that. But I got a little bit of revenge back, sort of, because I was on stage 3. I'm not gonna lie, this was kind of funny.
I caught their car on fire.
We can't do that. That's horrible. I would do no such thing.
I would do no such thing.
I don't know what you're talking. I can neither confirm nor deny
that burning rubber?
Yeah. So I was on stage 3, and there was these 3 minors, and this is kind of why I had to get involved, because I feel like it could have hurt, come back on the club. But there was these minors, And once again, like everyone else, they weren't getting up. And they all had plastic cups in front of them because they were drinking non-alcoholic beverages. And I look, and this one girl had a huge silver bracelet. I mean, huge. This was probably about as big as my fist wrapped around her. I'm like, okay, I don't know fashion sense. It's a little over the top, but so be. At some point, mind you, I'm right behind her.
Was it a flask?
Yes. Yes. She ends up like raising her hand, and I see the nozzle, and I'm like, what the? And then she even looks at me at one point, and I was like, that's a flask, isn't it? And she just giggled and looked at me. I'm like, that's a flask, isn't it? And she just turned around, and I was like, yeah, no, like, no, sorry. I'm like,
could get the venue in so much trouble.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, so you haven't tipped anyone, and you're doing stuff to get us in trouble. So I nonchalantly later on went around, got the head waiter. I was like, hey, I don't know who's serving that table. And obviously they're minors, so he's probably not paying that much attention to them. But I was like, the bracelet that so-and-so is wearing is 100% a flask. So I don't know how you want to go about it, but, you know, that's an issue. So I kind of got like a little bit of revenge back, you know. I was like, maybe if you were tipping, I might have not seen that. But, no. Yeah. So that was that was my least favorite event of the week. It's just, you know, all the guys were putting on a show, and it just got zero reciprocation, you know? Yeah. So if you're making more money on a night where there's 8 women versus when there's 100, something's wrong.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, yeah. How about you, brother?
You know, it's not necessarily a best and worst moment. It's just a funny moment. Mm-hmm. But this week I was practicing at this open aerial gym, and it's like mostly a parkour gym, like freestyle running. And so there's like guys who are doing like backflips off of walls and all this like crazy awesome stuff. And then I have my apparatus hung, and I'm like, I have a routine that I have to practice. And so I am in half cat outfit, like satin furry pants and a weird crop top. I mean, just ridiculous looking stuff that is totally out of context for a parkour running gym.
Understandable.
And then I'm sitting in a chair, and like I am facing all the guys doing the parkour running because that's where the wall is. So I'm going through my full routine, like I'm in front of an audience, and I'm giving sassy face and like licking my lips and all of this stuff. And I was just like, this is such like a fish out of water thing, like for them and for me.
Like you're drawing attention to yourself, but they don't want to obviously look.
Well, and I'm sure that this one guy thinks that I'm like staring into his soul because I'm like trying to give my best face and like do little body rolls on my chair as I peel a furry glove off.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that that's a little out of place for the parkour running gym.
Just ever so slightly, yeah.
But I went all in. I was not too pressed about it.
You might as well own it.
I'm paid to be here, so I'm going to get my work in.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm going to do a back roll out of a chair.
Oh man, mind you, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna try to take that. By the way, on your it was your cat routine where you drug the chair, you laid down on the ground, drug the chair over, and stood up, flipping over it. Oh man, that was absolutely ingenious. Well done, like on that.
Yeah, so I learned. I don't know very much chair stuff, but I took some workshops with this amazing Boylesque performer, Mr. Gorgeous, when I was at a festival a year ago, and he taught some chair stuff, and I just soaked up whatever I could from him because I mean he can work whatever he wants to work. He's amazing.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, with a name like Mr. Gorgeous, you would think so.
Yes, absolutely. He's super tall and silly and amazing performer. I'll send you some links.
Yeah, please do.
Laugh.
Please do. It's actually humorous too, because that's something we have to take into consideration because we do have ladies on our stage. Our stage is not as high. Is that when we do choreograph groundwork, literally on the ground, obviously in aerial it's a different meaning, but for us, groundwork, we are laying down on the ground or on our knees or, you know, we have to be careful how much of that we use because, you know, on a slow night when the crowd isn't at the stage, it's great, you can see everything and it looks awesome, but as soon as you go to a point where you have a packed stage 4 rows deep, now all of a sudden whenever you do that, everyone else in the club can't see you.
I forgot about that. I think when I was at y'all's show, there was like a crowd of people, and there was a guy doing something. I couldn't tell what he was doing, and I was like, my friend's mom is totally blocking my view.
Yeah. It can be awkward, but it also encourages people to go up to the stage, so you got
no, it's great. And it's just, you know, but that's an interesting thing is like taking your environment into consideration. I mean, as an aerialist, I would love to always have 20-foot ceilings, but the venue that I perform at the most has 12-foot ceilings on the stage. So I have adapted a huge part of my performance style and my routines based on that limitation. So I do a lot of very low height routines where the bottom of the hoop is maybe 45 inches off the stage. But I found ways to make that work for me because it gives me more leverage to power my spins and just kind of approach my choreography differently.
So on that note, just for technicality, when you have less height, do you take height away from the top of the hoop or underneath?
It depends.
Because I have seen you go above.
Yeah. I mean, if I have routines that require, a straight arm reach under the bottom of the hoop. And on those, I typically don't choreograph where I would have to do something at the top of the hoop because I don't know if it's always going to be there. And I don't want to have 3 different versions of a routine. Like it's either a high hoop routine or it's a low hoop routine.
Okay.
And I try and keep my routines pretty tight to what their intended display is. Because it's hard for me to make drastic choreography changes to something that I've practiced a certain way too many times, because in the moment when endorphins are running and you're kind of like you're on the stage, I will default to something that I was most used to doing.
Yes.
And then I'll be like, oh my god, how did I get here?
Yeah. Hey, but that's how you hide your mistakes or
That's
modifications.
absolutely true.
No, everything was great.
You know what? You got a big cat wig on and you can play off just about any mistake that comes along.
True story. Yeah. Just throw it off to feline attitude.
Yeah. You get stuck in your pants and you just kind of like act like a cat on Velcro. You know, it's fine.
That's happened. Occasionally, guys will try to rip their pants off and forget they didn't take their belt off. And you got to play that one off. Yeah, I've fallen a total of 3 times now on stage actually, and the first time I slipped on $1. Like my boot just went off from under me, so I just landed and backflipped out, like rolled backwards out of it. The other time, I don't know what happened. I couldn't tell you, but I just rolled forward and it worked out great because I ended up on my knees in front of a girl at the front of the stage, and I just kind of body rolled in front of her, and everyone was like, "That was amazing!"
Yeah.
And the last time was on stage during my routine. I slipped on water and I just played it off apparently like a pro because no one really noticed. Like one person kind of questioned it. I was like, "Yeah, you're totally right." They're like, "Okay, just think."
Yeah.
And I think it was only because she saw me practice at one point.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So yeah, that's part of the joy. All right, so best events of the week. This one actually was a lot of fun. So I had a birthday girl go up on stage, and it happened to be after my shower routine. And at some point, I like to talk to the people on stage because it kind of negates some of that variable that we were talking about earlier. So I like, hey, we're having a little bit of fun. This is what I'm going to do, stuff like that. Not too much so they can still enjoy the moment, but I like to tell them, hey, I'm going to get ready to lift you up. And I kind of gauge on whether I keep them in the chair or lift them up independently and stuff like that. So I was talking to the lady I had on stage, and she just couldn't make up her mind. And I don't know if it was the adrenaline or the excitement, but I was like, hey, I'm going to lift you up. Is that okay? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay. She's like, but yes. I'm like, wait, so yes? And she's like, no, don't. I'm like, wait, like no, or like no,
we
yes.
need to be real clear on this consent issue right here, ma'am.
Well, the problem is it took so long that like people started to notice, and then it got to the point where she was like shaking and bobbing her head. So it wasn't like there's no way disguising it at that point. You know what I mean? And I'm just like,
you should have just
sweetie.
put a wooden spoon in her mouth and told everyone she was having a seizure.
Yeah, because I just keep a wooden spoon on my underwear on stage for that purpose exactly.
Hey, crafty.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The long story short, I ended up lifting her up. She was okay with it. And that was fine. So I put her down, and she's like, oh my God, my thighs are soaking wet. And I'm like, sweetie, that's kind of the point of this, isn't it? And so then she just started rolling until I carried her off stage and stuff. But yeah,
That's amazing.
It was great. It was little moments like that where I'm just like, this is exactly why I do this job.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was great. And needless to say, her thighs were really soaking wet, which is crazy because I kind of try to dry off before I get on the girl. Yeah. But hey, such is life, right? So you recently did a Fifth Element burlesque, right?
Yeah.
Did anything about that show that just kind of really stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was... So, the Fifth Element show is one of the bigger shows that the Lollybombs has done. Like, it was our second year doing the show, and we've polished it and cleaned it up and made some better props and added some new routines and changed some routines that we had. But it's just like a real exciting thing for our troupe because it's just so much energy in the room and people love the Fifth Element, and it's just so... It lends itself perfectly to burlesque because of the extravagance of the characters and the costumes and all of that. And I had these really awesome ruby rod wigs made, and by this wig maker that I'm friends with, and he made these amazing wigs, and I had to hold them on with bra straps that were actually safety pinned up inside of the wig. They go on like chin straps.
Yeah.
Because the wigs have so much weight, because, Ruby Rod has that big piece of hair that comes forward. And let me tell you, it is really hard to spin and invert quickly to do acrobatic moves when you have like a 5-pound wig on. So
I believe it.
The height of my night was getting through all of the performances without a wig falling off and remembering most of my choreography. And then afterwards, my whole troupe standing in front of this giant artistic wall of trash we had built in the lobby and taking pictures with the audience. That was just the best.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really wish I could have gone, but obviously it was a Saturday night and late, so there was no way I could go. But I really wanted to see it. And at the very least, the pictures I've seen were absolutely phenomenal. Your show looked, as a troupe as a whole, looked amazing.
Yeah, it's a really solid troupe, and we're all very close, and we work together. And for a show like that, we practice together twice a week for a month and a half, 2 months, and run routines and give feedback and things like that. So it's very supportive and very much a team effort.
Well, we're at the part of the show where we'll go ahead and throw in all the plugs. So by all means, go ahead and where can people find your troupe at? As far as social media and stuff. Yeah,
so Lollybombs Burlesque. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. We do a show every 2 months, the second Saturday of every other month. And it's just a really great troupe. We do a lot of neo-burlesque. So there's definitely sex appeal, but there's circus. It's really weird. We have very strange, attachments to our pop culture. And you will never walk into a show and be like, wow, there's no 90s music playing, because we use a lot of 90s music.
Hey, that's great. Are you kidding me? If anything, modern movies today have showed you that that's like a good way to go.
The owner of the venue will be like, what do y'all want for doors? And we're like, I don't know, 90s alternative.
They just kind of look at you like, I think I have that folder somewhere.
We're like, Carrie, it's the same request every single time. Just play 90s music.
Hey, it's a winner. We actually do throwbacks quite a bit at LaBare too. Yeah. It's really funny because as new guys come in, there'll always be someone every 3 months that just does a throwback soundtrack, and it's great to think that they're the first ones to do it. But it's always a great time across the board because it's everyone's favorite hit. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely get that. Do you want to plug in some of your own social media where people can contact you?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Just type in Ickymuffin and I will come up, and you will see pictures of me covered in fake blood and wearing wigs and doing strange and awkward things with tacos. So check it out.
Oh, so that was the taco thing earlier. Got it. It makes a lot of sense. You also did a Patrick Bateman routine,
yes,
right?
That was actually one of my favorite routines right now. I wanted to create a really dramatic routine, and we were doing a Killer Queen show, so every routine was based on some sort of 90s or early 2000s murderer. So, we had Claudia from Interview with the Vampire, and then I did Patrick Bateman, and, just all these, crazy things. And I had, a rhinestone axe and a wig and lots of fake blood, and then 4 minutes of dramatic spinning.
Two things. One, I'm starting to pick up on your pattern for headgear. I think I might have figured out your costume preference. Yeah. But two, I was actually there, fortunate enough, when you were creating or choreographing part of that routine. And it was amazing because I was just like, that was awesome. And you just kind of tried to look at me and you just threw your hand up like, just give me a second. I need to.
Yeah, no, I remember that you were like, that was awesome. It was so you flowed so well. And I'm like, I am garbage. I am trash. Nothing went right. I have to go sit down and watch my video, but thank you.
Which sounds like Patrick Bateman, so it worked out great. Right? You were in the character perfect. Man. His business cards are off ivory white. Oh my God. I feel inferior with my regular stationary white.
I am garbage. I am trash.
That's awesome. Well, Icky, I really appreciate you. Oh, wait, I got to plug myself. Shoot.
Yeah.
All right. Facebook, you can catch me at Cesar Collazo. Instagram and Twitter is Cesar LaBare 7. And then you can catch this podcast and my reality show. And I'm sure I have other content somewhere. Oh, yeah, my fire and aerial performances on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes at Cesar the Crowd Pleaser. Sweet. Well, Icky, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute delight.
It was awesome.
I really appreciate it. I hope people enjoyed having you on the show as much as I did. They learned a lot. I know I did. And I really do look forward to seeing, your Hall of Fame thing. Plug that.
Yeah. So, Burlesque Hall of Fame, there's this big event called The Weekender. It's a huge burlesque festival in Las Vegas every year, and they've been doing it for a very long time. And I have been selected to compete for the title of Mr. Exotica 2018, which is like the king of burlesque for the festival. And so I will be competing with a bunch of really talented performers from all over the country and the world. And hopefully I'll get a crown. And if not, I hope a really awesome person gets the crown.
At the very least, you'll probably have a painting from an elephant.
Yes, I hope I get a painting from an elephant. I do.
Well, sweet. Thank you again so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's great being here.
All right. Until next time, keep bringing the rain. Sweet. Thanks, brother. That was awesome, man.
Great.
You're fantastic. Holy crap.
No stones, oozing ice cream as loud as you know. Airplane mode on tablets and phones. Caesar's crowd pleasers is now on. Caesar, the crowd pleaser. If you need to pick me up, ladies, we gon' change your demeanor. Caesar, the crowd pleaser. We gon' do a little dance, we gon' make the naysayers believe us.